Coming at you now with a rambling session. The Brandon Taylor Podcast, yeah!
What's going on, guys? Brandon Taylor here from Delphic Argonauts. Here to do my first podcast. As the video idea that I was trying to do before, I wasn't able to do because I don't have the right stuff to be able to actually record it properly. So, decided just to do a audio format video. And what better way to do that but a podcast and just ramble for a little bit with a couple of topics. Never done a podcast before, but I have started to listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, the Devin Townsend podcasts where he's actually going through a lot of it, like all of his past records, which is actually what influenced me to do this setup of the way I'm doing it today. So, where do I begin? So, a life update. I'm starting to get back into working out because I fell off the wagon for so long, where I just kind of was eating really bad food, because I really didn't adjust to the new scheduling with my day job. So I've taken a step back and actually started to focus on my mental fortitude and physical health. So I've also gotten back into doing the Wim Hof Breathing, which has helped my moods tremendously. Because I did that, I started doing that in, I want to say it was October, and I did that for, October, about 4.5 months, like straight, and it helped me so much. But then I stopped doing it just because I was starting to lose the consistency and stuff like that. And then I told myself, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and see what happens when I don't do it after a while. And a lot of the symptoms that I had came back, which were, the tendency to overthink things, the anxiety that comes from that, and the mood swings came back. So I started getting back into doing the breathing techniques, and it's actually leveled out everything again. So I've come to understand how important the actual method is for my own well-being. So, which, if you guys have never heard of Wim Hof, he's also nicknamed the Iceman. Vice has done interviews with him. I think the Discovery Channel did something with him way back in the early 2000s, where they actually put him in a thing of ice where he was actually able to be in there for over an hour, where his body temperature never went down, which that was the first time I learned about him, which I thought, what? How's that even possible? But with the experience of me doing the breathing techniques and then doing the cold showers and stuff like that, I realized just how possible it actually is, and that we as humans are actually more have the ability to what's the word I'm looking for? Adapt to our surroundings more than we thought we could. So, if you have not checked out Wim Hof before, I recommend doing that. By the way, you spell his name Wimhoff. You can find YouTube videos with him. Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson actually did an interview with him, which is where I rediscovered him from that actual interview, and they actually did the Wim Hof method, the breathing technique, live on the podcast. So I was able to do it along with them, and that was when I realized just how much it affected me. And it just makes you feel so good, man, because all you're doing is you just focus on breathing. You're not focusing on anything else but just that. And it's very simple to do. I mean, anybody can do it. So definitely check it out. And I should also state, today is May 4th, 2021. which is a Star Wars day, I guess. May the 4th be with you. And this whole time, we've been in a pandemic, which has been very interesting to see it in my lifetime. I actually had to deal with COVID personally, as during my, it was August of last year, I actually caught the sickness. Don't know where it came from. But all I know is I've had, just from my personal experience, everyone has had their own symptoms and experience with the sickness, which, and then there's been talks that there's different strains that exist from the start. So I wonder if that has anything to do when it comes to everyone experiencing different symptoms, but you also have to keep in mind that everyone's body is different from each other. So, there's some people who are more overweight, some have autoimmune issues, some have something that is just going to make people different from each other. But anyway, the symptoms that I had, it was like a weird cold feeling. Like I was having a cold, but I've had colds worse than this. I lost the taste and smell. That was like the first red flag. I was like, wait, I can't smell anything, and all the food I was eating tasted weird. So that was when I was like, I better go to the ER, or the urgent care, and actually get tested, and then come to find out, I was positive. But my other symptoms that were part of that was a slightly runny nose, slight fever ache, but nothing too serious, and a headache that was there, but it was just more annoying than painful. And it was actually the 2-week quarantine was actually the worst part of the whole experience, because it was pretty much me for the majority of the time being locked up in my room, trying to avoid getting my parents sick, because I still live with my parents and they have their own slew of health issues. So every time I'd walk out of my room, I'd always have a mask on. I'd always try to keep my distance from them, and I always ate apart from them. Always sanitized my hands, and with those precautions, we were able to avoid having any of them get sick with it. So that was a blessing. And it was once I had gotten, because it got to the point where it's like, you know what, I should ask to see, hey, just give me antibiotics, just because. Something better than just sitting here and just dealing with it. And it seemed like as soon as I started taking the medication, the symptoms went away. And to this day, I still have the antibodies. So good on that. But out of all of that whole situation of the quarantining and stuff like that, a lot of introspecting myself and actually self-analyzing stuff in my past, just the way my personality is. That was one of the things that came really good out of that. And a lot of music came out of that too. Actually, 2 records worth of music. All having to do with the concept of yin and yang. Because chaos, order, the duality of life and stuff like that. And just realizing where the shadow was pretty much, I allowed myself to do, have my insecurities, stuff like that, affect the way I communicated with the people around me. And that really went into my time with trying to work with a bunch of different musicians with the Delphic Argonaut project. And I've either lost friendships through that, and I've also bruised some of the relationships with that. And to the people that I had, I've lost anybody I've hurt because of my poor communication skills during that whole time. I am sorry. Which is the reason why during that time in quarantine, I took the time to accept the fact that you need to get your point across a lot better than the way you have been, because the fact that I was too afraid to hurt anyone's feelings, caused me to either not to speak up, or just go with the flow, and then consequently when I want to say I want to do it this way, I would go about it the wrong way. So I've been working on myself, trying to be more, I would guess you could say, alpha than beta mind. And so far, the relationships I've had have seemed to have gotten better. And the things that I usually want to say, I've gotten a bit better at too. So that's the benefit from all that. So that's pretty much what has happened with me for the past year. Should say, with the Devil Gargonaut stuff, we do have the EP's finally coming out. It's coming out the 28th of May. And we just had our first single, which is going to be the only single that actually came out on... You can actually go on Spotify and actually listen to it. And it's called Creatures of the Deep, which to me, I thought the song, just the structure and everything, to me was the most, how should we say, accessible for anybody to hear our music for the first time. Our being my music, because it's pretty much just me and a producer now. So far, the people who I've talked to who have actually listened to it say they love it. They like the song, which I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the people who have listened and supported the music. It means so much to me. The only gripe so far that people have with the actual song has more to do with a certain part of the mix. And that was the vocals not being compressed to where it fit with the music. So to kind of explain that a little bit better, it's that it sits above the actual music, where instead of it being meshed like one on top of each other, it's just like overpowers everything. So when it comes to these next two LPs, I'm definitely going to be working on that. But everything else, everyone said, yeah, the mixing of everything else is great, which I would like to thank Christian Neal for that, who's helped me out tremendously. He was the actual producer and engineer for this whole project. I just went Canadian there. I meant project. And the process of going through and actually getting this material out has taken me a better part of, a lot of this music, like the beginning of the writing of the music started way back in 2016. So it's 2021 now, so it's taken me pretty much 5 years to finally get this stuff out. But I'm glad we were able to get it out and actually move forward with the new LPs, so which are coming together pretty nicely. We got the guitars, the lead guitars, and the drums done, like recorded and everything. So now we just gotta get the bass, vocals, and miscellaneous stuff, which were like samples and stuff like that, done. Which should hopefully, I'd like to get the 2 records done by the end of this year and then release them not long after. So stay tuned for that. But going back to explaining about the process of the EP, which I should say is called New Dawn's Rising. The writing of the music started around 2016. It was slowly piecing together the parts. And pretty much the way the whole process of that was, where I would be either, like, for example, one way I would do it's like I would have a riff that would come to my head when I was at work, and I would actually get my phone out and hum it into the phone when no one was around, like my supervisor and stuff like that. So that was one way I came about writing a lot of this music. That I can actually point The Coming Storm, which is actually going to be the first song off the EP, was actually written that way. Because I just remember we were dealing with so much crap, because I used to do claims when I worked at Walmart years back. and we were dealing with so much stuff. I mean, because claims, if you don't know, it's where all the broken stuff that people bring, it you scan through and you send it out to a return center and stuff like that, and we just were bombarded with stuff, and it felt like a storm of shit just coming our way. So back when I didn't have to worry about getting in trouble with having music on, since I was in the back area, I blared pretty much thrash metal and went through all the shit. We didn't get done, of course. But still, a riff came out of all that, and that was the main riff of the song, which, I mean, the song hasn't been released yet, but it goes... So it all kind of just came about, and so I got my phone, hummed it into the voice memo thing, came back, and I recorded it into my DAW, which I use Sonar, which people are like, oh, use Cubase, Logic, all this stuff. It's like, use whatever DAW works for you. That's what I say. Dig what you dig. Another way that I would get inspired to write something, because for Creatures of the Deep, which was actually their first single, and like I said, the only single that's going to be for this EP, came about when I was playing Doom, actually. And there's the one song which you can definitely tell was heavily inspired by it, which I'm not afraid to admit, was Into Sandy City, which is... So it's, you could definitely hear, like, if you were to put the two together, you could definitely hear, like, the similarities of the music, but where it actually does differentiate in some parts of it. And other times, the way I would be inspired to write was I would literally sit in front of my DAW and I would just jam away for a bit, because I have like a template that I've saved to where as soon as I come here, I can immediately start recording. And I think Rebellion came out that way, which is going to be the last song of the EP. Yeah, both Wormhole and Rebellion came out that way. Excuse me. So, and the whole thing, when it comes to writing lyrics, it's easier for me to write lyrics when I make it into a story. So, I literally sat down, and when I would listen to the music, I literally sat there and I would just bring it up and I would listen to it. And I would very vision based. Like if when I hear something, it brings to light colors, and sooner or later an image will come out. It's almost like you're chipping away slowly when you're working on the music, like an archaeological dig. So having that thought come up in my mind, and the color blue, which if you actually have listened or seen the cover of the EP, it's very blue oriented, very sea, like the sea, like the ocean is very heavily inspired into it. First, that color came to me when I was playing the stuff, listening it back, and then thinking about the fact I just mentioned, like the archaeological dig, when you're trying to figure out what riff goes well in that particular part. I associated that with like someone going on an expedition to go find something, and the first thought was Atlantis and someone going on a ship trying to find it. So that's pretty much the story goes. Here's the other thing I should say about the EP. It was originally going to be a full release LP, but due to the fact of things getting started and then consequently having to be stopped and restarted, just for the sake of time and my interest in the actual music was starting to wane, I just told myself, you know what? I'm going to pick the four strongest songs, and then I'm going to work on those and record them and get them out. So, but the whole story goes is that you have the main character, which the name is never mentioned in the actual songs, but his name has been determined to be Jason Morgan. And the story goes that he's out to find the lost city of Atlantis, which his father was trying to find and went missing, consequently, by trying to go and find it. And this music is supposed to represent him going through the trials and tribulations of him trying to find Atlantis. So, like with the coming storm, it's him on the ship starting the journey and then consequently being attacked by this huge raging storm that's trying to stop him, that was sent out by the gods, which in this case is Poseidon, which his name is brought up in Creatures of the Deep, which we'll get into that in a moment. So the lyrics, hang on, let me bring up the lyrics. Get out of here. Where are you? Oh, that's right, I gotta save it on my phone. Hang on. Look at me being all set up here and stuff. See, Creatures of the Deep, Fearless, Rebellion, where are you? The Coming Storm. So, and some of the situations I was dealing with at that time kind of go into this, but just talking about the whole storm part. Out to sea, a storm approaches, one to rival all. Pretty much that kind of was sparked by the whole thing going on at work. But what was interesting that came to my mind was when I had made the choice to do this, like write all this stuff on my own. The lyrics came out like this. This is the beginning part of it, by the way. Here you stand to chase a dream, a magnum opus only you can claim. You prepared for what's to come, overcome. And you can actually put that towards anything in life, You're trying to better yourself. You're the only person who can actually better yourself. No one else can do that for you. So you just had, like, the person who started Publix, George Jenkins, had this saying that was very short, sweet, but to the point. Begin, the rest is easy. Because if you think about it, when you are trying to decide if you want to go through doing something, you always have all these doubts and stuff like that cause you to not actually want to jump in and do it. So that's always the hardest part. But after that, whatever trials and tribulations that come from it, you pretty much can prepare yourself, because it's a whole learning process. So, but anyway, continuing on. Harder and faster the storm rages on, I do not care, for my soul carries on. And that's for the part where it's like, no matter what life throws at you, you just keep going. You do not stop. Because we all should strive to find the strongest part of ourselves and make, and achieve it. So, and then after that comes Creatures of the Deep, which is a trip dealing with depression. Because that was another thing that I dealt with over the span of my early 20s and consequently in my high school days, is dealing with depression and stuff like that for stuff going on in my life and all that. But who doesn't go through depression, really? So the creatures of the deep, actually, the creatures themselves is what's supposed to represent depression. So, in which the song starts, can you feel them calling deep within, these creatures of the deep, like a cancer growing, stronger still, consumes everything in sight. Because depression, to me, I always, compared it to what it was like a cancer, because it does grow and gets to the point where it's like all motivation to want to do things. You don't want to do anything, which I think it kind of played into my time trying to communicate what I was trying to do with this music with the other guys that I played with. It's just that I was not right my headspace was not in the right spot. So, which consequently caused me to, just if I wanted to say something or lead it into a certain way, I did not have the mental fortitude and the emotional maturity to be able to do that. So, but continuing on, darkness swallows you, all sanity is lost within, suffocating life from you. And then it makes the quote, Poseidon makes his move. So it just continues plays on that what I just said about how depression makes you blind to everything that you're trying to do and makes you lose interest, which I think is the reason why I slowly stopped really wanting to do a full record with this. I just wanted to get this music out because I've been taking so long trying to get through making it. It's like, you know what, just we'll pick the best 4 songs and just get it out. That's what I felt at the time when I was first starting to do just these 4 songs. But I've recently learned to actually stand behind the music, because I think the music actually is really good, and the story behind it I think is worthwhile. So and then it goes into. So the second verse is, can you feel the deafening silence crushing you to the bone, overburdened by the fighting, the hope beside now is fading. So it's very dark, a very dark thing to say. But I try to bring it back up by saying, don't you dare lose the lights you own, this is not the end. These demons have no sway on you, force them back to hell. And that's like the call to action to stand back up and actually conquer the stuff that you are having to deal with. So, push on to the light, new dawn's rising, show the way. Nothing holds you down, go now towards the end. Which just further solidifies that. I mean, you do what you gotta do to try to, conquer whatever it is that you're dealing with. Even if it means just taking a step back for a moment and just taking a breath and trying to analyze the things that you're dealing with. Whether it's financial stuff, health situations with yourself, family, friends, any of that. You have to take a step back and make a plan. Because if you're just going to sit there and just allow yourself to be overwhelmed with the stuff that's going around you, you're just going to allow the depression and the dark side of you to take over. And then you end up not doing anything. So, and that's when you become complacent, and that's when you pretty much get taken by the current. So what you end up having to do is get up on your own 2 feet and actually push back the darkness, make the plan to conquer everything that's trying to hold you down. And by the end, on the other side of that, when you reach the light at the end of the tunnel, you become stronger by that, because of the fact that you just went through all that hell and you're able to conquer the depression and stuff like that, and now you found a new lease in life. You found your purpose. And I consequently think that that's the main thing that's going wrong with our society these days, is the fact that everyone lacks purpose. So I honestly think if we could start teaching people how to find their purpose in life a lot easier, then I think we could be much better off. And then going into the next song, which is Wormhole. It's a very... You see, there has been so many different renditions of that song, because it was definitely... It's definitely the more proggier song when it comes to like the time signatures and stuff like that, and just the way the riff is. I mean, because the verse riff used to be a lot more complicated, because it used to be but now the final release, it's a lot more simple, where it's just like an octave thing going on, and it's just a lot easier to sing that way. Though I will say it is probably the weakest vocal performance that I've done with these 4 songs. because my issue when I was trying to do the vocals that on this particular project was the fact I did not give myself enough time to actually rehearse and work out how the songs were actually going to work vocally. So, which I am rectifying for these next 2 LPs. Like I said, this whole thing was a learning process through and through. You know, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to actually recording, you know, structuring the songs. But so with the ending of Creatures of the Deep, Jason Morgan actually defeats the creatures, you know, that were being sent to him by Poseidon to try to stop him from finding Atlantis. So after conquering his fears and actually slaying down the darkness, you know, both physically from the creatures and the darkness that was inside of him, he finally finds the light to the wormhole that leads him to Atlantis. So the song goes, "To the void we go, nowhere to return. What we seek is near, take your fate in hand." And then the pre-chorus is, "Chaos pushed on through the silence. Wormhole takes us further. Atlantis is in our reach. Let us go." It's pretty much, you know, you've worked so hard to get to this point. You can see that the end is near to where you are actually able to reach your goal, and the goal for this character being Atlantis. So, and it's him making the commitment to push on and grabbing life, you know, the magnum opus, pretty much. And then, you know, even all the sacrifices that he's done, you know, that he's had to make and stuff like that. It you know, it was all worth it. Because as a psychologist that I listened to, I mean, I don't know if I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of him, Jordan Peterson. He says, you pick your sacrifice. Don't let life pick the sacrifice for you. Something like that. Yeah. Which I always found that interesting, because in some way, no matter what choice that you make, you're making a sacrifice for something. So, for me personally, I'd rather be in control to be able to make the sacrifice that I wish to make, that I'm willing to accept. So, and making a plan helps. Yeah, making a plan really helps in determining making the best decision, what the best sacrifice that you need to make that's not going to affect you, anybody else, but it'll still it still can affect you and everyone else, but I'm just mean in a negative light, where you don't make the hell that you're going to have to go through any worse than it already is. So, make the plan and pick your sacrifice. Don't let life make it for you. So, going into the chorus, justify, purify, all will be revealed, realize, treasured prize, all within our hands. Destiny, heavenly, paradise is found, remedy, pleasantly, transcend all before. Like I said, when it comes to structuring this, I didn't know what I was really doing. I was just trying to make it rhyme. Which, it just, to me, now just as I'm reading it back and just thinking back to that, doing the vocals, it's weird. That's all I can say. It's just weird. But hey, you live and learn. So that comes to the very last song on the EP, called Rebellion. Very straightforward, almost like a hardcore kind of anthem thing. Because pretty much in the story, the characters have to deal with the fact that he's come to all the realizations of how Atlantis had fallen due to corruptions caused by man, but also these supernatural things outside of what we can understand. So he realizes that it's starting to affect the outside world, so he makes the decision to go out and stop it. So he, pretty much throughout history, he becomes a person to get the common folk to rise up and stop all of this corruption. To me, it's actually, even though as simplistic of a riff as it is, it's like my favorite song to actually play. It's between this and Creatures of the Deep are my two favorite songs to play. Punk rock, man. Hardcore punk rock, that's what we can call rebellion. So, pulling up the lyrics, hang on. So, there's so much crap. So, here we go, the time has come for us to make our stand. We were shown of what's to come, the shackles of our lives. It's pretty much him trying to make the call to action. That, hey, you know, you're having pretty much all your freedoms taken away from you. And it's about time that you realize that you're going to have to make a stand, or else you will be shackled for the rest of your life. So which would indicate, if you wish to grasp your freedom, take your sword in hand, no more time for idle hands, charge straight to their gates. We have found our way to rebellion. And then it goes on saying, I am my own leader, I am my own master, don't let yourself falter. Rebellion. I think we have a tendency to forget the actual meaning and use behind of the individual. Because we have everyone saying that they're an individual, but then they end up just grouping themselves with, you know, and then having the mob mentality. So everyone then pretty much loses their self-identity for the sake of the group, instead of calling out the corruption and the authoritarianism and stuff like that, which I'm not for that at all. Which is the reason why I always stay in the middle. I'm the milquetoast fence sitter. Chaos runs deep into the streets, no silence to be found. The wheels of fate begin their turn, strike back the puppet masters. As, you know, there's always like the theory of like the Illuminati and stuff like that, you know. Who's actually really pulling the strings of the world government and all these big wars and stuff like that, but we'll have that discussion for another day. But this was like one of the last songs that were actually written. It was the last song that was written. Because to me, I felt like the vibe needed something that was a lot more simplistic, to the point, and kind of like the anthem for the whole record. EP. And I think I was able to accomplish that with this song. So, that is the listing and the story behind New Dawn's Rising. And as this is my first podcast, I'm going to keep it short, as I'm kind of running out of things to say, and I've just been rambling on. So, but yeah, I guess I should put this as a plug for the release date of New Dawn's Rising, which will be May 28th. This podcast was originally supposed to come out the 6th, but something came up and I had to postpone it. Some personal stuff, which I can maybe talk about the next podcast, because I'm actually enjoying this. Good way to retrospect things and not internalize everything, and actually let it out. Give it a place somewhere other than becoming stagnant in my own brain. So, as an introvert, it kind of helps that way. So, but yeah, May 28th, 2021, New Dawn's Rising will be released. And I will also have a music video, not a music video, but like a music playthrough of The Coming Storm released same day as this, which will be the 11th. So, because this was originally recorded, let's see, what's today? Yeah, the 4th. May the 4th be with you. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. I'm gonna learning process here, just as New Dawn's Rising was a learning process. So, see you guys in the next episode. See ya.